What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to talk about why there's going to be a big test going into tomorrow, as the market may see a bit of a dip as we have a gap to fill below, and because of some data that's coming out. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, as far as the market goes, I was saying in my video yesterday I was expecting a bounce in the markets. Notice that SPY went all the way up to 599.7 a share, almost getting to $600. So it did make a big move to the upside. We were correct about that. But then I also gave you guys a warning about how technically SPY still has this head and shoulders, right? I said we have to break 602 to try to invalidate this. And if we get close to 600 to 602, watch to see if we get a rejection or not. And what happened was so far, we were not able to break past 600. We got a rejection instead. And because of this gap down here, it makes me suspect we might actually dip a little bit more. And we'll see if we get a bounce or not. So it's not the end of the world yet. SPY is not officially confirmed that we're done with this move because once again, we start to break structure right here, and we're trying to attempt this push. This is just a small little dip amidst this push, so we'll have to see if SPY attempts to break 602 in the future. If not, if we see another reversal signal and this thing continues to dump, then there's going to be a bigger dip coming, and this thing is not going to be ready quite yet. So I'll talk more about the levels in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about some data. Just know that as far as the market is gone, Apple held up quite nicely. Microsoft, Nvda, Google, Meta, Amazon, the rest of the big tech stocks were in the green. But then when you look at the overall sectors, we saw others out there such as health technology, consumer durables, a little bit more flat or in the red. So the market was more mixed with tech leading the way up and most tickers in the red or flat. Now for tomorrow, it's going to be Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Just know that there's not really much coming out in the morning. We just have some exports and imports data at 8:30 a.m. It usually does not affect the market too much, but the main piece of data is this right over here. At 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have very important JOLTS job openings and job quits reports alongside our ISM services data. So the ISM services tends to be very important. The services sector is pivotal for the way the economy looks. I'm looking for employment, new orders, and prices data to cause more volatility. So watch for that very carefully. Just know that when this data comes out, it's going to cause a big move. And we'll see if the market dumps or pumps, so watch for that. Now, when it comes to other factors, just know that there's not really much coming out for earnings for tomorrow. We have minor earnings, if anything, and things get more serious from Wednesday through Friday, as we have Jefferies, Delta Airlines, and a few more like that. Besides that, the fear and greed index is currently at fears. So this was at extreme fear, started to get bought back up, and it became less fearful because of buyers who stepped in. And even today, it's still less fearful than before, but just know we'll have to see if this lasts or not as the market's at some key levels. Momentum is currently at fear. That's making up the majority of sentiment. Fear is what is still driving this market, but it's less fearful than before. We'll see how that ends up shifting. The put to call option ratio is at greed. It's starting to dip a bit because we're starting to see some puts being closed. Puts are being closed as the market was starting to get bought back up. We'll have to see how this goes, at least moving forward. The VIX has some gaps to fill below, but overall, the market does not look like it's ready to see like a massive breakout yet. We're still in a very, very critical place. But speaking of the VIX, I just want to say that with the VIX being right here, the VIX is holding above 16 quite well. There is this gap below here to fill. So we'll see if the VIX bounces and gets a rejection to fill that gap, which opens the possibility of the market dipping then bouncing. Or will we see something completely that's different from that? So I'll talk more about that in just a second. So for SPY, we have this gap to fill down here. We rejected so far. We were not able to break out of this pennant so far. The head and shoulders is still present and it is still looking probable unless we break 602. So going into tomorrow, we need to see SPY get back above at least 598 and then 600 to turn back up. If 600 breaks, we're looking for 602 to break after that to turn more bullish. If we can't do that, look at 594 as our support, and that's going to be our 50 EMA. If that fails us, we're looking for a dip down to fill the gap around 592. And if that fails, we go all the way back down to 590, then 588. So I'm favoring that SPY is going to most likely dip to about 594, then fill the gap to 592. But then our 200 EMA might try to act as support, and we could try to rebound after hitting that. So it might be a small dip and a bounce most likely, unless we lose 592 flats, and this could be dipping more. But I presume what's going to happen is we dip to about 592 and then try to bounce. We'll see if we could hold that, but look for a small dip here. If 592 does not hold, we dip even more. So that's going to be a big test for SPY. Might be a dip coming here, so watch that very, very closely, everyone. As far as ES goes, ES has a similar pattern. Now, notice that we also have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder, but we're technically making lower highs right over here for the right shoulder. Now, I would have wanted to see this thing break past 60.70 to turn back to bullish. Because we were not able to do that, we have a range to watch for. There are buyers defending 6,000 flat near the 50 EMA, but there's sellers stepping in between 60.30 and 60.60. So this may have pushed for 60.30, then start dipping back down to 6,000 flat and just trade sideways, but there's going to be a risk of this dipping a little bit lower if this does not hold, so watch that very closely. For Bitcoin is trying to push right over here. We have a nice inverse hand shoulders, but look for an attempt to get back up to about 102,500. If we don't break that, we're looking for a dip back down towards 101,000 right now. So watch this very closely. I think that we might be looking for a dip to 101,000. If that does not hold, we could be dipping a little bit lower towards the lower areas. So look for 102,500 as our resistance. If we can't break that, we're looking for a dip back down. So watch to see what kind of reaction we get. There might be a small dip right here towards 101,000. For Nvda, we held up very well, but we have to see if 150 holds. The last time we hit this, we did get a rejection, then 152 was a rejection move again. So we'll see if 150 holds on Nvda. If it holds, we could push for 152. If it does not hold, we're looking for a dip to 148. So watch for a big test tomorrow on Nvda. This might dip to 148 and try to bounce again, so just keep that in mind. But overall, I think this has a lot of resilience relative to the broader markets. For stocks like Tesla, we're technically on a small downtrend on Tesla, at least for the more shorter term. Why? Because we had a high here, came down, and a lower high came down. We also broke structure on Tesla, so it made a big move down. We were not able to hold above 425, so it's not the best of signs, but there was a wick that formed below hand, so I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla pushes, as we typically do in the mornings, back up to 417 to 420, but then once we push, we could get a rejection and move back down. If we can't hold 405, we're looking for a dip for 402 to 400, then 394 below that. So it might pop and then drop as the most likely possibility, unless we reclaim 425 with bullish news, we turn back up. But I'm thinking we push and make a lower high compared to 425, and we end up getting to like 417.5 to 420 before it starts to dip again. So that's the most likely possibility in my opinion. For NQ, we have a nice double bottom. We have 21,800 as our resistance. If that breaks, we could be pushing for 22,000. If we lose support right here, we're looking for essentially 21,600. So if that fails us, we're looking for 21,580. We're making lower highs right here, and we'll have to see how it goes. So if this fails us, we're looking for a bigger dip for 21,400. So I think that we need to try to hold above this trend line. If we can't do that, we go back down to 21,580. If we do this, we could be looking for 22,000. My gut tells me it's going to consolidate, maybe dip a bit, then try to bounce. It might be a small dip that's coming. Same thing with the QQQ. We're making lower highs so far. I like the fact that it's trying to hold it very close to 525. However, looking at the current trend, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see a small pullback, especially if we have this gap down here to fill at 519. If we end up losing 523, the trend line right over here, I'm going to be looking for a move down to fill that gap towards 519. And we'll see if we bounce off of that or not, so please keep that in mind. For Aapl, we're technically on a bit of a downtrend. We want to see it hold above 247. Otherwise, it's going to be at risk of dipping to about 242. So please keep that level in mind. Might be a dip to 242 before it tries to bounce. So there could be a small little dip that's coming. For Netflix, we've dipped quite a bit. We're trying to base at this 870 area. As long as you hold that, we're looking for a rebound for 890. So please keep that in mind. For MSTR, we're trying to bounce right here. We were talking about how this was bullish yesterday. We're looking for an attempt to get closer to about 380. If we hold above that, we're looking for 400 as our target. So it still looks a bit more bullish for the 380s to be coming. For Celsius, we have a nice double bottom and a nice bullish divergence. So we could continue to uptrend for 29.5. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially the 30s. For Supermicro, we look a bit more bullish. We have to see if we can hold above 35.76. As long as this holds, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 38.5. If we lose this, we're looking for a dip back down to 33.24. I'm favoring that this is going to be going up for the 38s very soon, as long as we hold support. For Palantir, unfortunately, we're in a range. We are technically going back and forth between these key levels, but I do see some weakness because it did not hold its EMAs. I want to see it reclaim 77.4 to turn back up. Otherwise, it's favoring a move back down towards the 73s. So I favor downside a little bit more. Rivian pumped very well. It's about this 16.7 area, but did not hold that. So now it could be dipping to test previous resistance, becoming support around 15.5. If that fails us, we dip to 14.8 again. So please be careful. There might be a small dip on Rivian. We'll see if it bounces off support or not. So far, it's going to be testing 15.4. We got to break that to push for 16. If we come short, we could be tipping back down to fill the gap and then come down to about the 14.8 area. For the Russell, This is not doing that good of a job. We were supposed to hold above 228. Because we're not doing the best of jobs at doing that, there is still that risk of this potentially coming lower. So please keep that in mind. It could be retesting 223.6. For AMD, we look a bit more bullish. We want to see this thing try to hold above the 130 area. If we break that, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 132. And if we lose 128, we're looking for a dip back down towards 127.7. So I think this might attempt to push a little bit higher. We could try to get close to this imbalance towards 132. But then once we hit that, we'll see if we get a rejection again, especially as we have this gap to fill. So look for an attempt to hold 130. As long as it holds, we could go up to 132, but then we could reject after that. So please keep that in mind. ARM also looks a bit more bullish as a lot of the chip stocks are holding up quite well. We're looking for an attempt to get to 115. We'll see if we reject off that or not. But overall, it's doing a good job. Coin is looking a bit more bullish. This could try to push for 290. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially 295 as our targets, and we'll see how it ends up reacting. If it rejects there, it could be dipping back down for 280. So look for attempts to push for 290. We'll see if you reject or not. Amazon has like a double top leg pattern, so I'm a little bit concerned about this. If we hold above 228, we're looking for 230. If we can't do that, we're looking for a dip back down to 225, especially as we have this gap to fill. So watch 230, see if we break it or not. Otherwise, this could be dipping. We also have this resistance to watch for at 635 on Meta. If we can't hold above that, we're looking for a dip back down to 625. So look for 635. If we retest 630, if we can't hold, we're looking for 625 as our target. For Microsoft, we look a bit more bullish. We need to try to break past 430. As long as we're above that, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 434. And if we lose 426, we're looking for a dip, especially as we have this gap to fill. So I think we may pop and start dipping back down to fill this gap back down to about 424. And then on top of this, we have Google, which I think has a very, very nice range here. We have an attempt to, test resistance at 200. If we can't break that, we're going to be looking for a dip here, but look for an attempt to get to 200 as time goes on. For GameStop is on a very, very nice uptrend. We're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 34. I think this may continue to pump, so give this some time. For AMC, we have this resistance around this 4.1 area. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 4.2. For other factors out there, we have DJT. DJT is completely range bound right here. We have this resistance around 37. If that does not hold, we're looking for 35. This may dip and then try to bounce for 37, so give this some time to develop. For the VIX, we are technically on a we're making a downtrend right here, especially as we have this gap to fill. But there is a nice bar here, so I wouldn't be surprised if we actually bounce a little bit on the VIX. Maybe the market sees a little bit of a dip, but then if the VIX gets a big rejection and we end up losing 16.75 after getting a bounce, then we could start coming back down to fill these gaps. So that makes me think the stock market is going to essentially see some sort of dip to start things off as the VIX tries to retest these EMAs. But then as time goes on, the market may make an attempt to bounce because the VIX may start coming down. It's also because of other factors like that suggest that the 10-year is turning up. We'll have to see if this lasts, especially in how the Fed is going to deal with that. And then the dollar came down, but it's trying to rebound as the market's dipping. Look for a test of 108.35. If that breaks, we could be pushing higher in the dollar, and that could signify that the market's going to slow simultaneously. So my view of the market is simple. There might be a little bit of a dip coming, might pop and then drop as time goes on, especially as we have our data coming out to fill this gap down here on SPY. But then we'll see if we bounce or not as time goes on. With that being said, guys, I want to thank you all so much for listening. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Please make sure you watch your levels very closely, especially as the market approaches tomorrow. And do not forget about the data that's coming out. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow with another update. Until then, take care and peace out.